Now, as we slowly come into fall, this is a good time and a good reminder to understand how the sun places itself in the sky. This is very important because it's going to tell you what type of plants you need to move around in order to make sure they're still getting 6 to 8 hours of sun. Now, we do know that the sun's intensity is not going to be as harsh as it is during the summer months. But make no mistake about it, if you are growing trees in containers, you need to consider this one piece of advice. The sun sits higher in the sky in the summer. In the winter, the sun sits a lot lower. So the lighting changes and the duration of the light also changes. What can you do to make sure that your citrus trees that are being grown in those fabulous containers of all kinds get enough sun to make sure they can adequately develop their fruit? This is very important. After all, when it comes to fruit on a citrus tree, you want to make sure that they get plenty of sun, especially during the fall and winter months when the sun is at its weakest. Don't get me wrong, it's still bright in many cases, and depending on the region of the country you live in, well, you pretty much have summer all year round. I live in a mild climate, Northern California, better known as Zone 9B, Sacramento, the capital of California, and we have somewhat of a mild climate, but Southern California is even more milder than Northern California. They deal with more heat-related issues than we do here. I live amongst the coast, and so I'm going to get a lot more, subtropical and tropical conditions depending on the season. Make sure you take note and take care of your containers. I'm going to show you really quickly what my containers are doing, how the sun is reflecting on them, and it's approximately 4:00 p.m. here in the Sacramento Valley. Let's go. So right away, you can see where the sun is. Right there. And it's getting plenty of light, despite the fact that my trees are underneath an overhang. Plenty of sun. And let's go check out the other side where my citrus orchard is. Right away, you see there's a cara, and 3 Nagami kumquats. These are all getting sun, even though the sun rises on the east and sets on the west. They're still getting an adequate amount of sun. Let's go check out the other trees. Along this entire stretch and walkway, there are citrus trees. We're going to take this angle. There's an Oro Blanco, and there's your favorite, Auraria satsuma. There's the mother of the Nagami kumquats, the Mexican key lime, the Moro blood orange, and the Eureka lemon. These are all being grown in containers. We also have this Barrett's lime being grown in a container. But let's not forget this Clementine mandarin. It's not a container. However, it's being grown in the ground, inside of a raised wooden box, a raised bed. So is this Tangelo. And let's not forget the Sanguinella blood orange. So all in all, my trees are doing exceptionally well. Please take note of this. If your trees are younger than 2 years old and they're grown in containers, you need to be very careful when you have them out in the sun, especially the midsummer heat. That can take a toll on your citrus trees because your trees don't have adequate access to water or moisture in the ground. When grown in a container, they dry out relatively fast. If you've exhibited some signs of what I call dehydration, or where your trees are drying out too fast, Number one, the roots may have encompassed all of the soil mass. Therefore, it can no longer hold water or moisture. Here's what you do. Take your tree out of the container that is in. Take brand new soil amendments, place it into a much larger container, and replant your tree. There's plenty of nutrients now. The water is going to stay in the container much longer than it would, had it been inside of a container where the tree was root bound. And more than likely, the tree is root bound. If it's not holding on to water, your tree is root bound, and you need to take it out of that small container and up pot it. One more lesson. The sun does not damage your trees. Citrus trees we're particularly talking about right now. If you're growing in containers, the sun is not necessarily going to damage them. The usual thing that happens is, once again, let me show you. No matter how small my containers are, every last one of them, it's going to be attached to a drip line. Large containers, small containers, even the trees that are grown in the ground, they're all attached to a drip line. Remember what I've told you folks for many years? When it gets hot out there, most people are not going to go into their gardens. Thus, the trees are going to suffer. Don't water your trees when you want them watered. Water them when they need it. That means putting them on a consistent watering schedule. If your trees are dying, your citrus trees, it's because it's your mistake. Some people will blame it on certain insects. Well, trees don't have a lot of insect infestation. They deal with some things here and there, but for the most part, if they're older trees and they've set their roots really good, they can deal with those small pests. Grubs? Grubs are always going to be in your soil. But once again, grubs cannot destroy a mature tree. And if your garden is in balance, well, the harmony will start to sing. On a side note, put your water lines in. It's quite simple. If you've got a spigot in your backyard, it costs you less than $50 to go get a roll of tubing. And then you want to get your lines. That's about $7, 100 feet, 50 feet to 100 feet. And then you want to get your drippers. You want to get your little timer for your spigot. Once you've got these things and you hook it up, you'll be amazed of what you could do for your garden. Next time you go out in your garden, don't ask your garden what it could do for you. Why don't you tell your garden what you're willing to do for it? Shalom.